Hi there, welcome to this build of a 40-inch wingspan Keil Kraft Gypsy, a lovely weight-filled design that was done by Bill Dean in 1949. Now you can see that this is really starting to take shape now, and in some respects there's not a lot more to be done, but obviously we've got to get the fuselage sorted. But in this video, well, in the last video, we got the tailplane covered, we got the fin and rudder assembly covered, and these sub fins. In this video we're going to pull that tail assembly together. So we're going to get this rudder hinged. We've got these small Dubro hinges, and we put the slots in a previous video, in an earlier video. So we've just got to kind of reacquaint ourselves with those slots. They're hidden now under the tissue and the laminating film, so we just need to use our scalpel and just put those slots back in. We've got to find them first, but that should be easy enough. So we're going to get that done, and then I'm going to peg them. So we'll have a look at how I'm going to do that pegging to hold those hinges in. Now we've also got the control horn. It's for a push-pull set up to a servo in the fuselage. You'll have seen that set up hopefully in a previous video. So we've got that control horn which we made out of epoxy board, and I need to glue that into the rudder. I've also got a piece of bent wire here which is integral to the dethermalizer setup. It's where the elastic bands go. So that needs gluing into the tailplane assembly. So we'll start to get some of this done, and then once we've got all that done, we need to cut the slots. When we covered this in tissue, we left the laminating film clear of a slot down the centre, and we put the tissue over it, but we now need to cut the tissue and we need to put the fin in and glue that into place so it's nice and square. And we've also got similar slots on the underside for the sub fins. So I think the first thing I'll do is I'll get this hinged. So I'll get the hinges in, and then we'll have a look at how we're going to peg them. Right, well, I've just used my scalpel to put a couple of slots in the covering film and tissue to re-find those slots, and I've just put the hinges in, and that's looking good now, but we need to secure them. So I'm going to use a cocktail stick or a toothpick like this, and I'm just going to drill a hole in and peg them. So we'll go over to my bench drill and I'll just show you how I'm going to drill the holes. Right, well, as I said, I'm going to use this cocktail stick, and conveniently this is around about, well, there we are, look, it's more or less 2 mil. Now, some of the cocktail sticks weren't that round, so it's worth checking and getting a decent one. So I put a 2 mil drill into my bench drill, and I'm using the depth stop so that I don't actually touch the bottom or the so when I drill this, essentially I've marked on some holes here, but I don't want to go all the way through. I want to stop just shy of the covering, because if we do go through, we'll have to patch both sides. So I've just used a bit of card. So I've set my depth stop so it's just shy of that. So now I can hopefully drill these holes and be confident that we're not going to go all the way through. So there we go, we've got one 2 mil hole there, and no sign of that on the underside, but we know it's gone far enough through the hinge here that when we put a peg in, that will hold it. So I will get the rest of these drilled and we'll have a look at putting the pegs in. Right, I've got my 4 holes drilled in there now, and I've got my cocktail stick. I've cut it off square, and now I'm just going to chamfer it a little bit so it goes in that hole a little bit easier than a square edge would. There we go. And now I'm just going to measure the depth. I can push it just between the hinge there, and I'm going to just put a pencil line on there, and that will give us an indication of the depth or the length we need to cut. Now we don't want it that long because it's not going all the way through, so we're going to cut just slightly shy of that line to give us just a little peg we can knock through. Hopefully, I think that's on the top of the screen. Okay, there we go. We've got our little peg now that we need to put in the hole. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to get my forceps, and I've just got hold of that little peg there, and I'm going to just put that in the hole. Now it shouldn't fit very well, it should be quite a tight fit, and what I'm going to do now is just gently tap that with a hammer. Right, okay, that's got it started, but it can often be a little bit trickier or a little bit more resistance as it goes through that nylon hinge. We have drilled a hole in it, but even so I'm just putting it on this steel block. There we go. Now that is just slightly proud, so I'm just going to tap that again. There we go, that's fine. And we can see there's no sign of it there, but that hinge now is pegged. So I've got some other pegs I cut earlier, and we will go around and peg all of these. I mean, if that ends up being a little bit proud, we can always very, very carefully use the tip of a sharp scalpel just to take that off. Now once we've got all of these pegs in, I'll show you how I'm going to cover up that hole so it doesn't show. There we go. So now let's put that on the block where we can give it a bit more of a whack. Now I have never had one of, nice and flush, no sign on the back. I have never had one of these fail. I find this a lovely technique, because with these small Dubro hinges, which are really good quality hinges, you have to be really careful that you don't get glue on them and freeze them. So I'll just show you, in case you haven't seen the video before, these are the hinges that I'm using. But I did hinge that, you can see them there, and I have just trimmed them a little bit shorter, but just in case you haven't seen that. But I did do a whole video or a video where I was putting the slots in and installing the hinges. So I'll get on and do this now, and then we'll have a look at covering up those holes. Right. So we've got all the pegs in, and I'll put a very, very small drop of thin CA where the pegs are, and that will just make sure the pegs don't come out, and some of it will wick onto the actual hinges themselves to hold them a little bit more secure. Probably not necessary, but anyway. Now we need to cover up the peg holes. So what we're going to do is we're going to use a hole punch and some of the tissue. Now if we try just cutting the tissue, it's not, with a hole punch, it's going to be really awkward. We need something for it to bite down on. So I've got a little bit of card here, it's an old drinks carton, and I find this really good for this kind of thing. So what we'll do is we'll go and make 4 little circles. We've got one there, look, and we'll do another one. Okay, so we've got these circles now, and what we're going to do is we're going to use the polyurethane, which we used originally to put on the tissue, water-based polyurethane, and we're going to use the slightest amount to just put around there, and then we can just put down our little circle over the hole, and there we go. And now we can just dab a little bit more polyurethane onto the top of that, and then leave it to dry. And you can see hopefully how that has worked. So I will get on now and do the rest of these, and we could probably use the brush just to pick this next one up. There we go, and we'll just plonk that on, and because this is nice dark tissue, it will cover that those pegs lovely. So we just need to wait for that to dry, but that's a really good way of covering them up, I think. Right, well, I've now got those 4 done, and you can see that's covered those up nicely. I've now got the control horn and the kind of the elastic band hooks to glue into the surfaces. So we've got this. This will just slot through there like that and into place. There we go. And I just need to make sure that is nice and square, and then we'll get that that glued into place for the push-pull mechanism. And similarly, this needs to just slot up here and into the top. So I'm going to get those glued in. I'll probably epoxy the wire and CA the epoxy board control horn, but we'll have a look at that when it's done. Right, well, I've now got the control horn. Does that stand out? You can just see there, I've got that glued in. I've just used some CA, and that's really solid now. It's not moving at all. I've got the wire attachment for the elastic bands. You can just see that there, hopefully. I've CA'd, I roughened it up, and I CA'd that with thick CA, and that has gone really well. So hopefully that will stand the test of time. Now, I've put in the sub fins on the underside of the tailplane as well. I'm a little bit disappointed because you can see there we've got these waves or ripples, and I was trying to avoid that by, when I did the covering in the last video, by bringing the film along and then down into the slot so it wouldn't come loose. But actually these ripples are caused by, I've put the ribs and the other piece of timber coming across, like a semi-rib, a little bit too tight, I think, and so when you slot the fin in, it pushes out the balsa and causes this kind of rippled look. So it's not the covering coming loose, it's just the like I say, the covering being forced sidewards. I should have made them a lot looser, but anyway, I've CA'd those sub fins in now, and it's on the underside, thankfully. Hopefully we won't have that issue with the tail, but we might do because we've still got to cut a slot here and slot that in. I did try shaving these down a little bit, sort of on the top bit where it went in, but it still had that effect. So anyway, that's kind of the way we've ended up with that. We've got the put that up to the light so I know where I'm cutting. Now I'm going to cut this down the center of the tissue, and we need to be really careful not to slip and go through the underside. And now hopefully this fin will slot into there and it will push the covering down. But the first thing I'm going to do, you can see I've just put the slot in there and the fin will go down. But the first thing I want to do is put on some decal. Now I've made these Keil Kraft, oops, where did that go? I don't know where that's gone, just dropped it. But there, that's another one. It's a Keil Kraft just logo, and I'm going to put that on the fins there. Now this is a water slide transfer, and I did a couple of videos ago just showing how to make these and how to apply them. So if you're interested in that, go back and have a look. But we will just have a quick look at me putting on one of these, and we need to make sure that we have the bird, I think that's a stylized bird, flying forward on the plane. So, and we'll just put that on there like that. It'll just break up that black. So I'll bring the camera around and I'll see if I can find that one that kind of went somewhere. Right, well these are the transfers, perhaps a better look, and we can see that is just going to go like that with it pointing forward. I think that'll look nice just to break up that black. I've just noticed that the front of the bird, I'm sure that is a bird, is a little bit is a bit pointed, so I'm just going to round that off a little bit so it looks perhaps just a little bit better. Right, now what we're going to do is just forward, we're just going to, where are we going to put that? We're going to put it about there, so there's a spar there, and we'll have that level with the bottom of the spar. So what we're going to do is just drop that in water, and we need to give that a few minutes before we can slide it off the backing and onto our rudder, onto our fin. Once this is done, I'll probably give this one more thin coat of the polyurethane, which will not only make this a little bit more uniform, but it will cover the transfers as well and just sort of seal those a lot better. Well, not that they probably need it, but it'll do it anyway. And so anyway, have a look at the video if you want to see how to make these. There'll be a link in the description below. Okay, well the transfer's been in there a minute or so, and if we look at it we can see it's slipping around quite nicely. Now I'm going to try and put this on without floating it on water. I often float it on water, but okay, there we go. You see how easy that came off. The black is just dulling that white a little bit. Now how's that? Is that square? Just want to try and get that top line nice and square. There we go. I think that is our transfer. So I'll just dab that with a bit of tissue and then check I haven't moved it, and we'll get the other side done. Right, well, I've now got this more or less finished. You can see I've got the fin and the rudder slotted down into the tailplane. I'm really pleased with how that's looking, and you can see we've got the decal on both sides there, and that's dried and looks lovely. What I'm going to do is I'm just going to sit this on a couple of my blocks, anything really as long as that's level with the bench, and then we can just place that like that, nice and level. And I'm going to use my large set square. This is my late father's, so it's a really nice one, and it's really nice when I get the opportunity to use it, just because of the association I have with it. I mean, I use his small one nearly every time I do some building, and I absolutely love this. It's just nice to be using these tools that used to belong to my father. Anyway, we're going to set that, or make sure that is nice and square, and hopefully you can see that. I don't know whether I've got the camera exactly lined up, but that's looking lovely. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to check again that it's seated down properly, and then I will run some thin CA along the seam there and get that well glued, and then we'll get the model off the wall and we'll have a look and see how it looks. Well, look at that. I am really pleased with how that's looking sat on the back there. I think it looks quite striking, and I think once we get this black fuselage it's going to look really good. I mean, I might relent and put a little bit of colour on, maybe a stripe, but I don't know, I quite like the idea of having it black, and when it's up in the sky I think that a black plane, I think it'll look really good. Anyway, I really want to work now to getting this fuselage ready for covering, but there's a few things we need to do first. I mean, I've got the nose block done and the prop here, I've got the rubber motor done. What I really need to do is think about the CG. So I want to mock this up, put in the radio equipment, the servos, the linkages and everything, and then see where the CG is falling, because we've got quite a small battery here that I want to use. I might actually get this as a flat pack rather than a square pack, because I think that will probably fit better and keep it out of the way of the motor, the rubber motor going down the fuselage. But I need to think about how I'm going to mount this. So I want to put provision in for that. I don't want to cover this and then realise it needs to be mounted in the nose somewhere and I can't get it there, or I can't get a piece of balsa in to support it. So I think the next video, I'm going to draw this one to a close now, is going to be mocking this up and making sure that I've got that fuselage just right really, just ready. I need to make a hatch on the underside as well actually, but I don't want to start covering it and then realise actually I wish I hadn't, because I can't get to make a platform for the battery. So anyway, I hope you've found this interesting and useful, and I hope you like the black. Some probably won't, but we'll see. And I hope you come back and see how we get on pulling together this this Keil Kraft Gypsy. And as I said, I think the next video we're going to be mocking this all up and making sure that we're on track to get this balanced without adding any lead. The last thing I want to do is make this heavier by adding weight that we can avoid. So anyway, thanks very much for watching.